I just want to finish a few areas here that we've got. Space.
The final frontier.
Final frontier. Rovers on the moon, man on Mars, the Japanese bombing an asteroid. Why are we having this new space race, and what benefits are there for us on Earth of all this?
I believe that we need it's kind of where Elon Musk is coming from as well, is that we need an insurance policy. Humanity could get wiped out at any moment by a huge asteroid just running into the planet, and there's nothing we could do about it. It would just knock out everything from human evolution to this point. There'd be a small few people floating around in the ISS going, oh, we're screwed. So putting a base on the moon is pretty good. That's a little further away from the planet. Putting a base on Mars means that humanity, its data, its spirit will live on, miserably on Mars, but it will live on. And we need that sort of stuff. The other thing about it is it just sharpens the mind for technology, leaps and bounds. War used to be the sharpening, and the difference between technology from World War I and World War II took us to some terrible places, but it moved everything forward. Everything from flight to computers, you name it, came out of the need of trying to keep each other alive and survival. If you look at what the space race is doing at the minute, in a lesser extent, is focusing the mind on solving some big technological problems. And it also brings us all together under a kind of one banner. If you remember the first time that Elon landed those two boosters side by side, there was awe and wonder of kind of how have we managed to get to this point? And now it's just such a casual thing that at some point within our lifetime, we will be able to go to space.
But are there benefits from the space race that is taking place now that we will see in the high street on a very simple level? I remember many years ago, my wife forcing me to buy a saucepan that was made of the same stuff as the nose of the space shuttle, which lasted, we still got it actually, and that was many years ago. So that works. But are there any uses of the technology that is taking place now, which we will see on the high street, but we'll see Amazon selling in a year's time?
All kinds of interesting small technological things will filter back down. Absolutely. Do you remember the man landing on the moon? Was that 1969? Yep. What was the impact of that? Did it change your point of view on the world?
Not really. It proved no, actually it didn't. It was just a great achievement. One small step for man and giant leap for mankind. And you felt very proud of the human race because of that. And it was a human achievement because humans had used technology in the most powerful and impressive way to do something that had never been done before.
So I think the space race now, is very interesting for that. I don't think that we will travel the stars in these really badly designed flesh bags. They are awful. They last about 90 to 100 years, and they are no good traveling at fast speeds in space. I think we're going to put our consciousness digitally, and we'll just send it at the speed of light somewhere else, and we'll be brought back together in some sort of robot or some sort of co-presence somewhere else on the other side of the universe.
There is one way in which technology could really come to be of real service to humankind, and that is by actually helping us solve the climate problem that we have created for ourselves. Now, is there a real chance of people coming up with ways of removing from the atmosphere all the pollutants that we've put in there since the Industrial Revolution? Is there really a chance of saying we could get a cleaner planet? We could devise a way in which you can move rain clouds over deserts and allow them to water and bring the desert to life again? Could we eventually use technology to totally control our physical environment?
You mentioned the Industrial Revolution, which was the beginning of us killing our planet one step at a time. The problem being that the technologies we've put into the planet are raising the temperature, which are causing climate change. We can't reverse them as fast as we've broken them. But when it comes down to it, is that the third world countries in the developing world are about 100 to 200 years behind us. And we're telling them they have to stop what they're doing and become like us right now. and they don't have the technology, the infrastructure, or the society, or the governments to catch up as quickly as we do. The only way that's going to help is we need to, sadly it comes back to money again, we need to take the wealth that we have over here, pump it into those countries so that we can fix the big kind of societal problems of coal-burning power stations, polluting vehicles.
Which the Chinese are opening at the rate of one a fortnight. Somebody told me.
Because that's the cheapest way for them to do it. We need to fix that problem. And again, it's spreading out wealth. It's considering ourselves one planet, one species, instead of lots of different countries and leaning into our old ways of doing things. To get that right, I honestly don't believe we're going to be able to fix it. I worry for the world that my children are going to kind of live in 20, 30 years' time.
You really don't think that if the effort was made by a lot of people working together, we could actually do it? And we may be forced to do it because pollution will start killing a lot of people, and it already is in certain cities around the world.
Yeah, but again, it comes back to whether we care. Sorry to say it, but there's a huge number of us, as you become smaller minded and closed in and protectionist and nationalist, you begin to
just live from day to day.
You get smaller and smaller and smaller, and you care about your people more and more. Trying to turn the tables on what damage we've done, we're not going to do it. We're going to have to go through some terrible times with basically the planet in convulsion. I talked to someone the other day saying that I think humanity's a plague. I think we're this fungus living on the outside of the planet, and it's just going to have to get some antibodies, which are typhoons and droughts and everything else, to knock us off, to kind of pare us back.
If we're not going to tackle the pollution, if we're not going to succeed in tackling the pollution, is our legacy then doomed to be the creation of robots that think and behave in every single way like human beings but don't need to breathe? So basically, unless an asteroid destroys everyone, we will have a world in 200, maybe 1,000 years' time, where humans will have died out, and the robots will actually be taking over. And if you do replicate a human being within a robot, do you have to give that robot the right to be illogical?
Yes, because that's humankind. Absolutely, we have the right to be illogical, and I think then the human spirit has that. We were talking about AI and creativity, and the idea that an AI could never be creative because it's not random enough for inspiration. So randomness is just a slider. Like, how random do you want to be? We can tell it to be off, wacky and off whack and come back. But when it comes down to AI and us living in robots, two things. First of all, the planet. We have existed on the planet for this, if you take the entire world as a 24-hour clock, we're in the last 15, 20 seconds. It's existed a hell of a lot longer than us. And there's been other creatures that roam the planet who are bigger in ugliness, and they came and they went. And if humanity comes and goes, the planet will carry on, it will fix itself, and it will keep moving forward. The amazing thing is that everything on Earth, and everything that we're made of, and everything that this is made of, and this is made of, and this is made of, has been here since the start. We've just got really good at converting it into other stuff. So make plastic and metal and energy and humans and food and everything else. So the planet is just a continuous moving giant organism. Now if we jog on, it might be in a better place, hopefully, who knows. But if we turn ourselves digitally, so there was a scientist that talking about, well, I can replace one neuron in the human brain with a digital on-off. So I just do one. We can do that. So I'm going to replace the one next to it with another one. Okay, we do that. If you did that for the entire human brain, just replace every single one at a time, you'd end up with a digital brain, which is exactly the same setup as the physical one. And would that be able to hold the human spirit? And the human soul, would it be able to exist as an artificial intelligence? I don't think we're too far away from being able to completely digitize humanity in that way and put our brain as a digital asset.
That is fantastic, and everything depends on the planet surviving.
The planet will survive. Humanity may not.
I wanted to give you an example. I once interviewed the American astronaut John Glenn, and he said, I said, how fragile is our planet? How fragile is humankind? And he said, imagine a globe that is 12 feet wide, and how much, and 80% of the atmosphere around that globe is responsible for sustaining human life. I said, how thick do you think that atmosphere would be? The answer is 1/10 of an inch. 1/10 of an inch, absolutely tiny. And that was what he saw from space, the absolute fragility of our planet. But one final thought, Sol, because it's been a tour d'horizon, as it were. We've touched on a lot of bases, which I think is what hopefully you expected us to do. But I wonder if, in the headlong rush to develop new technology, whether some people are not thinking enough about uses of older technology that has been left behind. And the example I give is a company called One, which some of you will know. It's a water company, and it's a social enterprise, and the profits go back into providing water for African villages. And what they found was that in a lot of African villages, the water was, I think it was 100 feet down, and the villagers could use a pump that they'd sunk in the ground to actually pump up the water. But where the water was 200 feet down, they couldn't. And yet they found that in a lot of villages, the water was there. They just couldn't bring it up without some kind of an engine which would need fuel or would need electricity, which simply was not there. So what this brilliant company did was they found where the water was 200 feet or so down, in villages where usually the women would have to go and walk 5 miles for water every day and 5 miles back, carrying it on their heads. And they put down the well, and then they put a device on top of the well which wasn't powered by any engine of any kind, but it brought the water up and let it flow into a concrete tank which is beside the well, from which the tap could be turned on, and the villagers could get the water. Do you know what that device was? That device was a child's roundabout, and the children of the village spent huge amount of time during the day playing on the roundabout, and the fact that they played on the roundabout brought the water up and into the tank. Now, that is someone who went way back and thought laterally. So in this headlong rush to develop technology, is there enough lateral thinking going on, or are we always constantly looking for one new device after another?
I think that's a beautiful thing, by the way, the idea of using children's play to kind of solve the village's water problem. I think when it comes to technology, we are always interested in the new, in the shiny, in the what next. I think so much of us are focused on that valuation of having the value kind of proposition of what's new and what's important to us. And I think we put far too much on the future and needing a new car or a new phone or a new house or new shoes or anything else. And that whole idea is just pushed on us through marketing and advertising. If you don't have the new whatever, you are a lesser person. And I think that is really, really negative and pervasive. So lateral thinking, we need to take a step back from technology and work out what's important to us as a society, as individuals, and make sure that we make some decisions that make us happier as humans, not just gratified as humans.
Sol, it's been a marvellous hour. Thank you very much indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, Sol. My pleasure.